This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Hawke's Bay, a community access media station. Thank you to New Zealand On Air for making this type of programming possible.
I'm a dreamer of 3D pictures. I'm a traveller.
Good afternoon, Radio Hawke's Bay listeners. It's Nikki Mountain here from Dyslexia Unpuzzled, Hawke's Bay. Our monthly podcast that share interviews showcasing transformation to triumph for members of our community. Our mission is to support neurodiverse individuals and their families with conquering their challenges with literacy, maths and ADHD. As always, we are broadcasting on Radio Hawke's Bay 104.7 FM and 1431 AM. This month, I'm thrilled to welcome a fellow colleague and Davis facilitator in Cambridge and friend, Claire Ashmore. So thank you so much, Claire, for joining us this afternoon. I've been currently working with you doing a course, the White Eye course, which we're going to speak about a little bit down the track. And I've just been a fan of yours right from the get-go with all your knowledge that you have about our programs that we do. And I'd love you to share this with our listeners. So just could we start, please, by sharing a bit about your current background and how you got into doing the Davis work that you do in Cambridge?
Sure, Nikki, and thank you so much for having me with you on this interview. I really appreciate it, and it's lovely to be able to share what we do. Briefly, my background has always been in education, so starting off as a new entrant teacher and primary teacher and kind of heading off into English as a second language. And in those days, a lot of us went overseas. I was no different, spending 3 or 4 years in Japan, South Korea, some of the Pacific Islands, and often called upon to be a writer or recorder of different people's projects, which was really lovely. One of them was on language policy in Melanesia, in particular Vanuatu at that time, was really interesting. So I think, my background has been one where I've been curious about why learners, some can easily and some have more struggle, and yet they might be incredibly amazing human beings. So I think that thought in itself was the seed for which all the Davis training ended up. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So what drew you to go and to train as a Davis facilitator? Because I'm not sure how many years you've been a facilitator, but you were quite experienced from what I understand.
It was definitely something I kind of fell into over the years, that seed of why can or can't a learner do something. I think with everything you start noticing and then observing, and then there's aha moments, and then there's turning points. So in answer to your question, I was working with youth offenders in the Waikato region over 1.5 years, and that was for a charitable trust, and we led a team of seven to do that, and there they all were again, the learners who were amazing and bright and yet couldn't function in a way that society wanted them to. So it made me want to figure out what could I do in order to go back into literacy and help these bright yet struggling learners, so that they would get better outcomes and for themselves and their families.
It's really sad when you see our kids that we have been through the education system with, and they do turn up in the justice system, and it's just so, I feel really sad that that happens for them, and I know, and you know, that if they had the right guidance and right, I don't know how you even put it, but right education that suited them, back from
Yes,
the get-go, the outcome would have been so much different for them, you know. So, yes.
absolutely. And so I was always looking for things and attending different things and, on Google continuously about dyslexia. And I felt like many of the responses were more about description of dyslexia and more of the same, that perhaps a lot of the people that I had been working with, it still didn't help them. It helped some, I'm all for not throwing babies out with bathwater.
Absolutely.
but it didn't help everybody. And so I remember getting on a plane and going to Australia for a 4-day workshop and wondering if this would be something that would work. And when I got there, it was so different from what I'd ever experienced. There were about, say, 15 people on this 4-day course called The Gift of Dyslexia, and it was like the introductory course. The fascinating thing was that there were 2 of us who were teachers on it.
Wow.
And we were the only ones who didn't understand what the content was. It was absolutely fascinating because we had a teacher brain. We had that systemic education of, and I remember the teacher saying to me, "Oh, has it been a while since you have done any study?" And I hesitated to tell her that I used to be the team leader for literacy for the National Centre of, numeracy and literacy for adults. And I'm like, man, what is showing up? What is showing up here? So it was a real full-on challenge for me. And I remember not doing the 4th day because I just couldn't understand it. But then I went back to them and said, could I redo this course? Because it seems like it's really a shift in paradigm. And they let me. They said, yes, do it in Auckland in 3 months' time. So I did a whole lot of reading and talked to people and thought, okay, I'm going to do it again. So a little bit of a long answer, but it's really, I wanted to say that the Davis methods, it's a shift in the way you look at things in order to achieve different results. And I have been able to achieve those results with the people that I wanted to work with. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes, I know. And as a teacher myself, I know we get very set in our mindset, don't we? And I know you were discussing on Sunday when we were doing our course about the bell curve, and that's kind of as far as our vision goes. And as educators, it's very hard to try and think out of that mindset.
Yes.
So, and move into facilitating, which is a totally different way of teaching. But I'm just interested because you said you had been a teacher. So was there ever during your training any mention of dyslexia or neurodiversity or anything like that in your training? Zero. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I did better than you, Claire, then. We got a morning's lecture and about dyslexia, and they showed us fuzzy words and this and that, and talked to us a little bit about dyslexia. And then they sort of said, as a teacher, it will be very rare for you to come across this in your classes. So keeping that in mind, as far as my own teaching has been, it took me a long time to realise that this dyslexia thing was actually out there, and it was way more prevalent than they led us to believe at Teachers College. So I'm not sure if you've had the same experience.
Totally. And I think the beauty of it was the Davis methods have reframed the definition of dyslexia as perceptual talent with learning difference. And I think that's made all the difference to the way that I now, at that time when I started learning this, I was working with adult learners in South Auckland. It was a beautiful experience, because then I could see that in some communities there was more dyslexia or more perceptual talent than in other communities too. So I think we know for sure that there's between 15 and 20% of the population is probably dyslexic, but I would say anecdotally more in some of the Māori or Pacific Island communities. So that was where I encountered dyslexia, perhaps for the very first time after starting my training, was working with my learners, but seeing them in a different way.
Right, okay. So I just heard you refer to dyslexia or perceptual talent. Can you just clarify that for us, and why you've used that term specifically, please?
Sure. So I guess back in the day when a teacher wanted someone to read, then, dys is not able to, and lexia is words, are not able to work with words. But just because someone is not able to work with words as easily, often they have quite strong perceptual talents or sporting talents or creative talents, mechanical engineering. Those kinds of talents are prevalent in the dyslexic community. But I also wanted to say that these days people talk about them as superpowers and so on, and I think that's a little bit difficult for the people who perhaps haven't succeeded as a superpower, because dyslexia certainly doesn't seem like a superpower to them. So I think we need to be careful about how we talk about it for people. But when I first started doing the Davis work, my third person I think I worked with was a mechanical engineer, and he was sent to me by his company. And I remember, I know we're always told our clients teach us everything we need to know. And I asked him, how do you fix a tractor? Those big, huge tractors in the Waikato that we have here. And he said, well, I walk into the field with, with the farmer, and I'm asking him about what's wrong. And he said, and I remove the engine with my mind, and I place it in front of me, and I see it, and I kind of float the parts apart, the components apart, and then I move my mind through as he's talking. By the time we've got to the tractor, he said, I know pretty much where to go to straight away. And I'm just sitting there going, wow, he's able to do that. And I said, that's a really good way of doing it. And he said, well, doesn't everybody do it like that?
Oh,
So he had no idea that the way he fixed tractors, he said the pieces seem real in front of him, like they feel real. And that's not every dyslexic, everyone's different. But that was when I understood that is a perceptual talent, that he is able to visually bring those components out and look at them like that.
That's an incredible thing, isn't it? So, yeah.
It really is, yeah. And I'll just talk about sports, because another person who have a lot of rugby players come here, and he said he was able to not only hover his mind over the field and look down at it, but he was able to put all the players into slow motion. And yet he would be running and passing fast with his body. And that is a perceptual talent, to be able to do that. And again, he said, doesn't everybody do that in order to know where to pass to easily? And I'm like, I don't think so,
Oh.
And so when you start asking the questions, and then people come out with these amazing ways they use their mind to solve problems, to resolve things. And of course, if they use that way in the word world, it doesn't work. it works in their world that they're naturally talented in, but it certainly doesn't work in the word world, because if you're able to shift things around, words don't want to be shifted around. They need to sit still for you to read them. And so it's quite fascinating. And everyone is different.
Yes, indeed. That is a very amazing explanation from both of those two people. I've actually never thought to ask my clients how they do see things. I've always
how they do their job or their sport or whatever it is that they do well. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I certainly know, and I've talked about before on this, that I had one of my clients who just made the most amazing models. His thing was the Titanic, and making 3D models was just, he'd take up the whole kitchen, making models, and everything would be exactly to scale from the Titanic itself. It was just incredible. And he did. When it came to letters, it was very difficult for him. However, what I did notice though was when we gave him our tools that we use in our Davis, oh my gosh, what an amazing difference that did make for him. And as we stepped through the steps in the program and we got to using the dictionary, and I said, he made a ship because that was his thing,
Of course,
the word ship. And before he'd even made the model, I said, well, let's look it up in the dictionary. And he found the word straight away, and without any hesitation at all, he read the definition of the word ship out of the dictionary. So it just shows you how powerful our tools are that we use in our program. So,
if there's a time, just to give one other example, because I had several actually who've come with the words flying off the paper,
Really?
Yes, or not being there at all. And one of them said, "You think I'm bad? My mate can't even see letters on the paper. It's just blank,
Oh, for heaven's
And of course, the mind can be so stressed with having to work in the word world that it just removes things that it doesn't want to see. It's a self-protection in many ways. And when the power of our simple Davis tools, because I said to him, well, what happens when you read? And his first question was, how do the other kids do it? And I said, do what? And he said, keep the letters on the page, because how do they stop them from flying in the air? And he said, I put my finger on the words, but they still fly up through my fingers. And I'm like, wow. I'd been at school for 5 years, and he hadn't seen letters staying still on a page for the whole time. So at the end of the week here, he could look at a book, a page, and the letters would stay still. And he just said, I just feel like crying because now the letters are there and they've stopped flying in the air. Wow. And of course, the letters aren't actually flying in the air. It's your mind that is making them do that.
Gracious, yeah.
But his ability with sport, art, and creativity was off the charts. So he was using that, as his natural ability and natural perception. So often the stronger the ability, the more difficult the word world is. Yeah,
that's
my experience.
Isn't it? So, gosh, and I was going to ask you to share some of your highlights of your Davis career with us.
I think it was the decision to over the lockdown period to work with Rachel Barwell because we knew that we could work with maybe 10 or 15 people a year, but we wanted to get more information out. And Richard Whitehead, a Davis facilitator in the UK, he shared his parent and tutor program with us, which he was trialing and now running to groups of parents and teachers. And we just felt that would be a really cool thing to do, because then at least the knowledge will be out there and people can start, to work with some of these tools. Of course, you don't get the one-to-one, program with a facilitator, but you get so much with it. And so the highlight was finding Rachel after I'd met her in 2008 and thought, wow, I'd love to do a project with her one day, And then we met up again in the Davis community. And so day after day for 12, 14 hours, because we had nothing else to do really, we adapted the parent-tutor group online course. And it's just been a delight. Rachel also works with African women's leadership, because she was brought up in Tanzania. And so one of those women is now our Zoom manager from Nigeria, and that's lovely. I also have family in Malawi, so I have an African connection. So it kind of then led to another highlight was a maths tutor or director of a maths tutoring centre reached out during lockdown 2 in 2021. And he was saying that his learners had trouble reading the questions, and they could perhaps do the maths but not the reading. And he had seen what I was doing online. He had worked with another of my friends in a different capacity. We just started sharing what I knew and what he knew. And of course, in a place like Kakamega in Western Kenya, it's on the border of Uganda and Kenya, in the lowland rainforest area. And, this is where equity is the word that doesn't exist, and as we know, in parts of the world. But it's been a beautiful journey, because we knew it had to be sustainable. We knew it would have to be real, and we knew it would need the equity. So Rachel and I connected to the whole Dyslexic Society in Canada, a charity. And Jeffrey Ashiono and Rachel and I have connected to that charity to be transparent, so funds can go in and be dispersed by them properly. And so the highlight is perhaps upcoming, because we have enough money to get Jeffrey his first laptop and one tablet for one of the locations so that we can test and trial. Over the last year, we've worked together to make sure the training is in the right context for Kenya. So we've replaced, a lot of the examples, of course, and the images and so on in our training to those that Kenyans will love.
Sorry for interrupting, but this is your training course that you do for parents.
Parents and tutors, yes. Sorry, pardon, yes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, because while we've been sort of doing that and setting it up, Jeffrey's been starting to train as a Davis facilitator as well. So we've been able to support him with that. A real highlight to be able to get Davis into another area of the world, and one that both Rachel and I are kind of familiar with, having family and growing up in different parts of Africa. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's been great.
Cool. So you've got parents and tutors currently on this White Eye course that you're doing at the moment. Can you just sort of a brief overview or outline or objective as to what all that's about and what it is?
Mostly it is, so it's 6 sessions, and each session is 2 hours. It's very interactive, and we teach some of the tools that we use, the focus tools. And then after each session, the parents and tutors will try out everything that we teach in that session. And then through the week, they will give feedback, or at the next session, they'll give feedback. And so we have been able to provide in these 12 hours plenty of strategies and ways of working with dyslexic children and ways of understanding how, as a teacher, you can see who has and hasn't got dyslexia. Being able to, it's a really practical course.
And it must be just so cool to have those parents come together and have a sort of neutral platform and other people that understand what, the journey that they've had and, be able to share in a neutral environment. It's...
The breakaway rooms are really good. We give a lot of time there because then parents can see they're not alone. Absolutely. And teachers get to see what it's really like for parents and the children. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Very, very powerful platform indeed. So, gosh, Claire, I sort of got this thing I could actually keep talking to you for another 3 hours or so.
We've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, well, we have pretty much, but I've really enjoyed speaking with you this afternoon. So, yes, if there's one bit of advice that you would give to parents out there that have got children that are struggling, what would it be? What would you recommend for them?
I think parents, I would first acknowledge the journey is not easy and that their child and their child's journey is unique to them. But to look for something that will help, that will empower their neurodivergent children or learners to unlock their inherent gifts so that they can live more fully and participate more fully in life in their way that's okay and safe for them and others around them. Yes.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you very, very much, Claire. I really appreciate you joining us this afternoon, Claire. Like I say, I could keep on talking to you for hours and I really thank you for the incredible work that you do up there in the Waikato. I know that you've many of your clients have benefited from your facilitating and from the work that you do. So listeners, I would love to hear your thoughts after listening to Claire, and if you want to find out more information, please don't ever hesitate to contact me and I can either directly put you in touch with Claire or answer questions myself. Feel free to email me at dyslexiaunpuzzled@gmail.com or connect with me on my socials. So I'm on Dyslexia Unpuzzled, Facebook, and on LinkedIn and Instagram, I'm under Nikki Palamountain. But I would love to hear from you, and I always love receiving emails with your kind thoughts and comments in that. So again, thank you very much, Claire, for joining us, and thank you
for having me. Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today on Radio Hawke's Bay 107. I've done it again. 104.7 FM and 1431. This program will replay on Tuesday at 12 o'clock p.m. Please be sure to tell your family and friends about it and join us again next time. Thank you again so much for listening. Nikki Palamountain, Dyslexia Unpuzzled.
This is my gift. This is who I am.
This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Hawke's Bay, your community access media station. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this type of programming possible.